Alright, we're back. I want to take the time in this segment to show you a trick that I've heard about and done many times on my own. When manufacturers make roughouts, they put it in a machine that has a holder here and another holder up here, and the stylus goes over the head of the router bit goes over and it traces the original and cuts this out out of a block. Well, what you end up with at the bottom of it is something that looks like that. And if you know anything about wood grain grows we want to make our carvings where the grain goes along the largest dimension, and this is the length of it rather than the width of it or the depth of it. That stuff is hard to get off. I want to show you how hard that can be, because it's in grain number one, so it's kind of hard to get it all cleaned off of there. You don't really have fun doing that. Whether I'm doing a small gouge, fishtail gouge, or if I'm using a bigger one, it's hard to get that stuff off. There's just no way around it. You just got to get in there and hog it off. Even with a very sharp gouge, it's hard. So one of the tricks that I've learned is to take water, 50% water, 50% isopropyl alcohol, and spray it. And so you saw a minute ago how hard that was to get off. I'm going to grab a big gouge. I don't need to soak it, but I need to get it in there enough to where I can work with it. Because what this alcohol is going to do, the water raises the grain. It's about like if you just dropped it into a bucket of water. The alcohol evaporates very quickly, but it allows you to work fairly easily. And so when I want that bottom off, I'm going to take a big gouge like this one. This is an OCC from some time ago, number 7. Let's see if I can do this where I'm at. Can't. So look how easy it is now. Kind of easy if I could hang on to it way up here. Let me put this down in my lap. I want to move it just a little bit. I'll have a lot more strength down here, tucked up against my body. Okay. See how that's coming off? Can you see it in the video? I want to do that on the bottom of this because I'm going to end up using a wood burner to burn in my name and artist symbol and whatever, artist mark. But that will bring it out to a point where it raises enough of the grain where the tool can grab a hold of it, and it's soft enough that I can. Here's the tool I was using a minute ago. I mean, it's so much easier now than it was before. One of the tips of the trade that you don't necessarily hear about, but something to do if you're using one of these roughouts, or if you're using really hard wood. A lot of people say, well, I won't carve that wood unless it's green. Well, this don't make it green, but it makes it softer. So just something to think about when you're doing one of these roughouts. Okay, we're back because I took the time to remove all those. Well, not all. I'm sure there's a few places like here where there's still some of that chewed up wood. But I've removed a lot of it, and I've got a lot of cleanup to go back and clean up all these edges. But let's do some more drawing. We go to the original pattern. This has got 2 hands with 2 thumbs here. So we're going to draw out the thumbs. And then right behind that, we want to have the edge of the fur on the sleeve. Now if you don't want this, you can always skip this. Because again, as I tell you all the time in my carvings, you should not do exactly what I'm doing. You should do what you want to do. And if you want this to be a woodland Santa where he's camouflaged, or the hands are actually fingers instead of mitts, feel free to do this the way you want. But I'm going to put the fur right there. I've already cut out this fur right here. I haven't drawn in the face. And so if I just draw some lines here, here's going to be my nose. Somebody's telling me they want to be my friend on my phone. Nose is going to come around here like this. Now when I'm doing this, even though I'm doing Pat Moore's carving, I'm not giving you her secrets. You need to take her class. You want to carve like this? Take her class, because she is an outstanding carver and a wonderful teacher. So if you get a chance to take her class, you would benefit immensely from taking her class. I'm going to curve that mustache up like this, and I'm going to figure out where the separation is between the head, the front of the hair, and the beard. And so that's going to be somewhere out here. And then the beard is going to come somewhere down like that. Hair here. And then so back here is hair. This is going to be beard. This is going to be mustache, because the mustache is going to come over here like this and outline the cheeks. And so the two things that are going to determine whether you have a smiling Santa or a grumpy looking Santa are the eyes and the mustache. And so you determine whether you even want a mouth down here. You determine how much of a squint you want on the eyes, and we'll get to that a little bit later. CCA has a couple books out about eyes and nose that came out in the last couple years. The nose one says pick your nose and then carve it. So some people might find that a little offensive, pick your nose. And then the other one is the eyes have it. So a lot of times you can carve these great big eyes or normal size eyes, and it just depends. We can even carve off these lines real lightly and move everything down where we have that. But I kind of like the way it's coming out this way. We're going to have some beard lines, curved, whatever you want to do on here. Again, you should not carve hers, you should not carve mine, you should carve yours. And so that's what you're going to want to do when it comes time to finish this thing up. You're going to want to do what you want to do instead of what somebody else does. I have a lot of carvers that I've been in class with or carved with them, and they don't want to carve faces, so they're content with somebody else doing it. They don't want to carve different. They don't want to add their own thing because you spent, well, in this case it's $24.95. I don't want to screw it up. I get that. I understand perfectly. But the real thing comes down to is, whose carving is this? Is this yours or somebody else's? I did not draw the ruff here. The fur comes down here on the drawing. It comes down here, almost like it overlaps, a coat that overlaps. We'll stay true to that if we can, which means somewhere around here will come in like that. And then you have the other part of the coat going around. So the argument comes down to, as you're carving along, are you carving the face first or are you carving the body first? I kind of like to work my way all around. I just finished a carving the other day. I started from here and went to here. And I did another carving before that where I did just the face, and then I went to the body to see what I wanted to do. And so I'm in here drawing this, and you can see from the original I don't have fingers. I don't have to worry about that. I got one thumb. And I got a ruff of fur here and a ruff of fur here. And then this is all going to be painted, and then the ruff of fur here. So let's cut that in. I got a V tool. Here's my stu by. And I'm just going to carve. I'm carving lines in rather than detailing in. Right now what I'm doing is just putting things where they belong, drawing them in, carving them in, whatever. I don't like the top of that hat, although if you see in the original there's a ball up there. I'm going to ignore that and do it my way, because it's, like I said, this is about taking somebody else's particular idea and making it yours. And I can tell you, after talking to a lot of instructors, what they don't want to do is sit there and see, you know, in a class, 10 copies of the same thing they did. They want you to be able to put your own individual stamp on it. Because to be honest with you, I know what mine looks like. I know what I did. I want to see how you stretch your artistic abilities, how you stretch your thought process, and then how you follow that through. So it may be that you've got great ideas, but you have a hard time putting those into play because you've not been challenged. Well, this might be a challenge, might not be, but the reality comes down to this is Pat Moore's carving, and I'm not trying to recreate that. She's a wonderful carver, wonderful artist, and a great person too, if you ever get a chance to sit down and chat with her and talk with her. I don't want to be another Pat Moore. She does it so well that I couldn't do it. I have to be the best Eric Owens that I can be. And so that means I'm going to carve it the way I want. I'm not trying to be a clone of somebody else. The world has 7.5, almost 8 billion people, something like that in it. And each one of us are individuals. And we should be proud of the fact that we are not a carbon copy of someone else. Because then you can go do what you want. Maybe your twin likes country music and you don't. You're more into hip-hop, R&B, whatever. You are you, and you should enjoy being that. And there's only one of you. So at this point, we've got a lot of the details drawn in, and now let's just go around and we'll start carving them. So here's the arm with that little bit of fur around it. Here's how the fur goes on the back side of that. Know that there's an elbow in here. So with this, the elbow is right there on this big old coat. I don't know about you, but I probably say this way too many times, but I just love that sound. That you just can't beat it. It's one of those sounds. If you grow up and you love cats, you probably feel the same way about the sound of a cat purr. You love that sound. Or, you know, if you grew up in places where they had tin on the roof and rainstorms, just listening to a rainstorm on the roof, on a tin roof, is just, I don't know, it's very calming and soothing for me. I grew up in Tennessee, and where I grew up, we got, 60, 70 inches of rain per year, and you just never knew when you were going to be caught out somewhere in the rain, and a little old shack to building or a barn just to go sit in while it was raining and listening to that rain on the roof. Right now I'm just going around and taking off all these lines that I don't want in places because I made a mark, and now I'm taking those lines off, and with it taking off any other kind of saw marks that I don't really want either. I don't do many roughouts. I've been starting to do more. But when I do a carving, I usually do a blank, and I usually leave the bottom flat so that I can put it there and leave. And this, I'm having a hard time with this because it wants to roll around on me as I'm trying to carve. So if it looks like I can't keep it still, you're right, I can't, because it wants to roll around on me. But such is life. If that's the worst thing that happens to me today is this thing rolling around in my hands, it'll be a good day. Okay, other than shaping the bottom of the base, I'm going to grab a smaller one of these V-tools. I've got a small stew-by over here, right there, because I want to get that real thin stew-by. This is a number, gosh, I can't even read that number there. It's a 40 something. I don't know. Getting old. 41 maybe. Anyway, real tiny, maybe a 30 V-tool, and maybe a couple millimeters across. I'm just going to go down in here in this separation I had between the fur and the base, and I'm cleaning up all these cuts. I'm just making it. Dave Stetson says, carve cleanly. Carve it clean the first time, and you don't have to worry about cleaning it up all the time. And that works if you're as good as he is. I'm not quite there. I'm not even sure I'm headed on the right road, but anyway, I'm being the best carver Eric Owens can be. I got to be happy with that. Because while I might have wanted to be 6 foot tall when I was younger, it didn't happen. So I can sit here and gripe and complain about how I'm not 6 foot tall now. But at 60-something years old, it's not going to happen. I might wait another couple centuries and I ain't getting any taller. So I'm going to move on. It was funny when I was growing up. I was told, eat peanut butter. You'll get taller if you eat peanut butter. Well, that didn't work. And then they said, well, don't drink coffee. It'll stunt your growth. Well, I don't drink coffee. Never really have. I ain't very tall. So at some point, you got to be happy with that. You got to be okay with the fact that you're not in control of everything. Hell, some days I'm not even in control of me. I'm just cleaning up the workshop the other day where we carve at a woodcraft store in Boise. At the end of it, we got to sweep the floor, and I swept the floor, and we've got a carver in our group who's a former physics teacher, and he loves to sweep and then scoop it all up with a big dustpan all in one swoop, and they call it the bob thing. And so I had the dustpan in my hand the other day, and one of our newbies hadn't seen that before, and had the broom, was going to ask me to put the dustpan down and sweep so they could sweep in there. And I said, let me try this and see if I can get it all in one swoop. And one of our carvers said, you going to do the bob thing? I looked at him and said, some days I can't even do the Eric thing. I have a hard time being who I want to be sometimes, but I'm working on it. We are working on it. Okay, come around here, do a little bit more cleanup because I want to take those black markers off, because depending on what color I paint this, it could show through, and I don't want all these little marks showing through. I'm just going around, and every place where I made a cut to separate two planes, I'm just going around and I'm deepening that with a real thin V-tool. This is a really good tool. This V-tool stays very sharp. I don't have to spend a lot of time honing it. But it's such a small angle, 30 degrees or whatever it is, that I can really get between the arms and the body or wherever. Clean that line up there. And do the Dave Stetson thing. So I can't do the Eric thing. Maybe I'll try the Dave Stetson thing today. Clean up. Anyway. I'd really be interested in seeing, if you follow this channel and if you see this video of this carving, whether you're interested in doing one of these. If you do, please drop me a line. I'd love to see what you end up with, whether you tried to faithfully recreate whatever Pat has done on her carving, or whether you have decided to do it and make it yours. I'd love to see that. I always enjoy seeing what my students do, or seeing what my friends do when they follow along. I appreciate it when they watch. I appreciate it when I get feedback, and I appreciate you paying attention. I just got back from the CCA event here a few weeks ago, month ago. Yeah, a little over a month ago, September 16th. And it was great because there's a lot of people that I had connected with online through Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. And a lot of them I knew, and so I went up and introduced myself, and some of them knew me that I had never seen them before. And so I really, really enjoyed catching up with some of the folks that I've talked to online over the last little bit. I really, really can't say enough how much I enjoyed meeting people like Tommy Thigpen and Bob Gilkerson, Chucky Ducky from Indiana. Always nice to hang out with. Rich Smithson and CCA guys. See my friend Blake get inducted into the CCA group this year, so I enjoy that. And so for me, it's nice to be able to see folks that are having fun with it, and that we're having fun along with each other. Okay, you know what I'm going to do next. I'm going to start adding some details, and so I'll shorten this one, and we'll pick up and start doing some details. I can see that there's places here where I have not removed all of that stuff, so I'd come back with another fishtail gouge and make it pretty along the way. Here's what that looks like if I hadn't taken the bottom off. I didn't take that screw off of there, and so that's what it looks like when I start doing it. So anyway, we'll have another video along the way, and I'll get these out just as quick as I can. We'll talk to you in the next segment. Okay, we're going to get back after it because it's a rainy day outside, and there's nothing better to do on a good rainy day than to sit here and do a little bit of carving and enjoy the day. Get my tools back out here. Figure out where I put them. So we're going to start adding some details about now. And so what that means is that we can go into places like this little arm back here. I know this is the bottom of the beard, and I know this is the crook of the elbow up to the bottom of the beard, and I know this is the top of the sleeve right here. So I'm just going to make some stop cuts and then come back in here and remove some of that wood, because the good thing about roughouts is that you can see where you're supposed to go. One of the bad things about it is if they removed the wood true to what the original was, it doesn't leave you a whole lot of room for changing it. And so I'm just going to make some of these undercuts so that the things start to stand out. For instance, right down here in this crook of this robe that we've done so far, we'll go down and we'll make the cut. So I made that stop cut right in there. I'm going to come back with my knife and lay it fairly flat. If you go too flat, you might get too deep, and if you go too shallow, you might get more off of there than you want. But I'm just showing the separation. Hopefully you can zoom in on that and see the separation between the robe of one side and the robe of the other. We'll do the same thing over here, right down in that groove. Just go straight down in there with the tip of your knife. And then I'm going to round it, and then I'm just going to take that sliver off. So you got to know which way the grain is running, because if not, you're going to cut them off the wrong way. And I got that cut pretty deep, so we'll go back down in here and separate it again, and come back and take it out. And my two cuts have not matched up perfectly, but we'll get it out of there anyway. So we come back here and clean up our cuts. And clean them up down here at the bottom as well. Now, I can then take that line all the way around so that we can separate the body of the robe and the edge of the hem, the fur. I know there's a name for it, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. And then I'm going to come back in here with my fishtail gouge, and I'm just going to nibble that away. So I've got that line cut in there. Let me zoom in just a little bit more. Got that line cut in right there. So I'm just going to separate, show some separation. I don't need to take off a lot of wood because the grain's running this way, and if I'm going down, I'm creating some splits on it, and so I got to come back and clean that up. So I don't want to dig out a whole lot. I want to dig out enough so that I'm removing the lines that I cut in there with my stop cut. I'm just wanting to take off enough to show that there is a separation between those two things, between the plane of the coat and the plane of the fur. And regardless of how you do that, there's always room to clean up, always room to make it better. And we're just removing wood and seeing where we need to remove it the next step. Some of you may watch me carve and you think you can do it differently, and I highly encourage that. Again, this is one of those things where you have to ask yourself, why are you carving? Are you carving just to recreate something else? And you know, as art students, that's what we do. We take an art class and you learn how to paint like the old masters. But I can guarantee you most of us don't want to continue that kind of paint the rest of our lives. We want to take what we learned and make it ours. And so this carving is the same way. You want to take your carving and your skills and you want to make it yours, not a carbon copy of somebody else's, because it's never really a lot of fun, because no matter how good that person is, the world doesn't need another one of those. Had that. It needs another you, and that's what you need to be. And so I'm always encouraging people to don't create exactly what I did. Do what you want to do. Do it your way. Show your expertise and your individual way of being the carver you want to be. And so when I cut one way, if it works for you, that's okay, that'll work. But if it doesn't, feel free to find your own way. Feel free to find what works for you, because every one of these carvings will all carve differently. I teach at our woodcraft shop, and the woodcraft shop just opened up a maker shop. And the maker shop is a subscription kind of service to where people can come down and take some classes, take some instruction, and make their own chair. And so if you take, for instance, an Adirondack chair, you all know what that looks like. And 10 people take a class on how to do Adirondack chairs. If they do it right, every one of those chairs is measured to the same specifications. They look pretty much the same, and they may look a little different when they stain them, but the reality is those are going to be 10 fairly identical looking chairs. Now, if that's what you want to put 10 chairs on your deck that all look the same, then that's fine. The reality is most people like doing things their own way in terms of putting their own stamp on it. And so for me, I feel the same way. When I take a class, I don't want to create a carbon copy of what the instructor is doing. and do it my way. Cleaning up. Going along and seeing where I didn't put enough depth into a cut or wasn't clean enough, and so I want to continue doing that. Wherever I'm carving, whatever spot I'm carving at, I want to make come out of there. I want to make it look like I want to make it look like instead of something else. Okay. Let's work on these thumbs. So from the picture, from the carving, the thumbs stick up a little bit from the rest of the glove, and so we're going to just carve around that. So it's going to go deep around that glove so that the thumb is embedded in there. This is ingrain, so it's going to be a little bit hard on you. But if your tools are sharp and you know how to use them, it's easy enough to get in there and get that glove curved out. And what I want to do is come in with a flat gouge. This is a file, Swiss made. So I want to say it's a number 3 because it's fairly flat and it's not very big. But that's going to allow me to get right up in there and have a little bit more control with this cut. So I'm going right in here where the glove is. Oh, I'm having a hard time hanging on to that round carving. So I'm going to go in here where the glove is and remove some wood around it so that it looks a little bit more embedded in that hand rather than just something just sticking up. So I'm just going to go around it, smooth it, take out some more wood there, make that thumb stick up. A lot of cleanup still left to do in there, but I got the idea. That gives me a glove, where his thumb is on top of the, good Lord, his thumb is up on top of that, up on top of his hand. Sorry, that was my daughter on her way home from work. She wanted to stop by and pick up some stuff. Okay, we'll do the same thing over here, and then we'll come back and we'll clean it up with a better cut. But we want to just get it in there and shape it first. Okay, come back in with that tool that I showed you, and we're just going to relieve the stuff around it. So we stick that one up, we made this a little bit smaller, at least it looks that way because we're indented back in here. We'll trim that out a little bit, make it a little bit deeper, it'll look bigger. Okay, I'm going to leave that there. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time working on that because it's sticking out, and so it's easy to hit with another tool. So it's easier to get around there, make the cuts we need to make right now, and come back and clean that up a little bit later. Okay, now I'll go around and I'll make a stop cut right around those gloves. Mitts, I guess. These ones don't have fingers. And so we'll just follow that line around. And then we'll come back and we'll undercut that. Stick that out. See how we've got it embedded back in there? Take out a little bit more sliver underneath it. And a little bit more. And it makes that glove look like it's separated from the body. It is, but we wanted to emphasize that. We didn't want it to flow and be part of it. I want to take a little chip out. Excuse me, please. I want to take a little chip out right here in front of that glove. And I want to take a little chip out right back here. So front of that glove, I'm going to go right in there. Just go right down in there between the thumb and the fingers of the mitt. Separate that. I'm going to do the same thing here on the front of that, top of that thumb. Remove a little bit of wood on the body side. Come back over at the top of it, trim off a little chunk right there, and a little chunk on the front to round that. And then I'm carving up so it doesn't break off to give it a round feature to it. It's one of the hardest things to learn about carving is how to attack something, because sometimes there's just no easy way to get there. I'm doing a Santa on one where the boots are right in here, and boy, getting down in there to get all those slivers out is really, really difficult. And so you just you figure out how to get your hand in there and how to make that cut. I'm going to make a little chip cut right here. This is going to look like it's separating the glove or mitt from the rough around it, and then separate it from the body. You see that little cut right there. And that shows that the hand is rounded. If it went back there, it'd look more flat, but it's rounded, so it tucks back in there. And then we can do the same thing with the front of that fur right there, and a little cut back here on the back where the fur is over the sleeve, and another cut right there. And all it does is emphasize the fact that these things are rounded, and they go around and they tuck under something else. So it's just that little shadow back there you're trying to create that is one of those details, excuse me, that is one of those details that people really enjoy when they pick it up, because it makes it look more along the lines of what you're looking for. We're going to do the same stuff, whatever we did over here, we're going to do it over here too. Again, little chips out in places where there's a connection between the thumb and the rough. We want a little bit back in here where the elbow is. We want to trim around that glove, and we want to make that cut around underneath the mitt itself. So I'm just taking a stop cut out, making a slice cut there. And I'm going to come back in here and take that off that I put in there. Follow that up so you can remove that wood up under there so it looks like it's got that shadow. Sometimes when you do these videos, it's really, really hard to show what you're doing, because this is not the way I'm used to carving. I'm used to carving up against my body. Carving out here in space is a little bit hard to anchor that sometimes, and so it looks like I slip or whatever. Okay, little cuts here where those things meet. Little cuts down here again. We're going to make a cut there, and another one right there, and another one right there, and another one right there. It just makes it look like they round over and go up under itself there. Don't want to make them too deep, but you don't want to leave them too shallow either. I see some saw marks on here, so I'm going to clean those up, and there's a little booger right there. I want to clean that up. Okay, I call them boogers because I don't like them hanging around in places I don't want them to be. And so remember the mitt, even though it doesn't have fingers, it still has fingers underneath it. So you still got to show that flow. If the hand's out here, and you still have a rounded set of those fingers, so this glove mitt still has to go down rounded. So we've got to take off wood where we need to take it off, leave it where we need to leave it. It's nothing more complicated than that. Leave wood where it's supposed to be and take it off where it's not supposed to be. If you get any more complicated, refer back to what I said earlier. Take off the wood you need to, leave the wood you don't need to. Okay, I want to do this separation between this part right here and the mitt. Again, just a small V gouge, V tool. And rather than you sitting there piddle playing and putter and chasing a sliver deep, this shows a clear separation between the two, as long as you don't leave any boogers there. Same way here around the front of that rough. Little small V tool. Get that down in there. You're going across the grain so it doesn't like it. Whose carving is this? Yours or mine? Okay. Go all the way down to the bottom of that. Same thing. Separating the sleeve from the rough. Okay. This is the elbow right here. So right in here we want just a couple, 2 or 3. Don't want them real sharp. In other words, they're not real sharp edge. This is cloth. When it folds back there in the elbow, you see how that cloth kind of rounds over. So you got to be careful on how you do those. I'm going to take a couple. I've got a big V. I'm going to go right in there where I drew that line. I want a bigger one right in the middle. And then maybe, if I need to, another real small one right there. And another small one right in the middle. You don't need many to look like an elbow, but we got enough there to give us what we need. Okay. Again, clean up as you go. It's a lot better to clean up as you go. It's kind of like cooking. If you wait to clean up after you're all said and done, you got a heck of a lot of cleanup to do. If you just clean as you go, since you're already in that area anyway, go ahead and take off the stuff you need. Clean it as it is, and then keep going. I can see that my battery on my camera is just about out, so I'm going to leave this one here with us finishing up this cut here. These cuts around here, around this glove, right on the front of that too. I want to take a little bit of that out there to show that room for that glove. And all the things that I did here, I'm going to do the same thing over here. So I'm going to go off camera, finish this, and you're going to finish it because I'm just about out of battery power. So I want you to finish this one before we go in our next video. I'll have to charge that camera up a little bit, but we're going to make the elbow cuts, and it looks like I only have a little bit of room here, so I want 1 and 2, and then maybe we'll put a couple in there, and then we'll trim up all that. So, all right, we'll see you in the next video.